Okay, I don't really know what's going on in the courtrooms because a lot of these court cases are very, very long-winded, involve looking at hours of evidence, and I don't, I don't have the time for that, and I don't even know how to get involved. Like if I'm not part of the jury, then a lot of things in court cases are not things that I would know about because they're not things that are exposed to the public, hence I can't talk about it. But when looking at the R. Kelly case, I feel like he's made a few mistakes, definitely, but I feel like they've tried to take up all the different kind of offences that there possibly is. There's racketeering, there's abuse crimes, underage with a minor, underage sex with a minor, soliciting for, I don't know. There's just loads of different names, racketeering and loads of different names, and it's like each one of these are a crime. And even though what he might have been doing is actually the same thing, I feel like they're trying to take as many laws that he's broken and try and fit them all into the same narrative of the same crime. And then it just feels like, is that fair? If someone commits a crime, you're going to say, oh well, that crime that you've committed fits into this crime. Oh, and that same crime also fits into this crime, and that same crime also fits into that crime. And oh look, it's abuse, and what else? What other crimes can we fit that storyline into the narrative of that crime? And then that's how people end up with 30-year sentences because okay, he's done probably made a few mistakes, but they're trying to take lots of things that are supposed to represent different things. I would say that sex trafficking is literally like forcing people to have sex with other people while saying you have no other choice. You cannot say no. This is what's going to happen. You're going to do this. And I feel like that's sex trafficking. Racketeering is where you kind of give people false deals. We've got a really good job abroad. It's a massage job, and all you need to do is just go there, and we'll provide accommodation, and we'll look after you. And then when they do the work, they find that all the money gets taken off them because oh, your flight was this much, and oh, your accommodation is this much. But with this racketeering, it's sort of there's a lot of lying about how much money is actually being spent, and then them taking more money off them, and I think at some point it probably does turn into sex trafficking where you're forcing the people to work with no other choice because of whatever reason you come. I feel like there is a borderline of both it, but I feel like you should be charged for one or the other. If it goes beyond like racketeering is dishonest business agreements. So you could say, oh, we'll pay for your accommodation, we'll pay for this, and we'll pay for that, and all you need to do is maybe have sex with a couple of people, and then when you have sex with a couple of people, you're like, oh no, it's not just a couple of people, it's we're looking at 30, 40, 50. This is a dishonest agreement because you've agreed to have sex with a couple of people in return for whatever it is that you're going to be getting. But they've turned it into something dishonest. They've changed the agreement, changed the terms. Maybe they said we'll pay for your accommodation, and that the money that you make is just going to go towards your accommodation. Now, maybe if they've put them up in extremely expensive accommodation, that they didn't realize that they were going to do that. Say if they've bought a private jet from one place to another, they can make out that oh, this private jet cost a huge amount of money that maybe it didn't even cost. Maybe it didn't actually cost that much. Maybe it's definitely racketeering because it's racket. The difference between there's a difference though between sex trafficking and sex racketeering. I would say racketeering is where people agree to do things on a false business deal. So they're thinking they're going to get something out of it, but the terms of the agreement are actually a lot different from what they thought. They didn't realize that the from importing them from, say, if they want to go to live in America and they want to kind of have a visa or whatever, they could actually be saying that the transport from country to country could be, £30,000. That's how much it costs to illegally get someone into a country. So they could. This is how racketeering turns into sex trafficking because it's the difference between um, there is a boundary. There's a cross when it's like racketeering is a dishonest agreement, and you've agreed to do something and it turns out to be false. But when it turns into sex trafficking, I think there's a border on how false, how much, you know, if you're going to a country and said that we'll get you into this country, you can live there, you will, you know, we'll give you not a visa, but we'll give you, you know, we'll get you into the country and you can just run away and live in that country, which is a lot better than your other country, you know. If you agree to do that and then you find yourself literally in prison and having to work as a prostitute to pay off something that you didn't realize you'd be paying off, you know, that counts as sex trafficking because it's a huge amount of money, and you're not just being forced to sleep with a couple of people, you're doing it all the time, you know, that's sex trafficking. But to say if someone goes into sex trafficking, to say it's both trafficking and racketeering, and then try to say, oh, okay, you deserve 20 years for sex trafficking and 20 years for racketeering, and then you'd be like, oh, it's abuse as well. Yes, it is. We could get another 20 years for abuse, and what else is it? Was there violence? Yep, violence on a person. Yes, that's another thing. And what else is there? Um, Inhumane conditions, or you know, there's a lot of things that come like sex trafficking. There's a lot of things that count, like a lot of crimes that are involved in such a name title as that. And then I feel like if it's possible to take something that includes lots of different crimes, try them for that, and then also get the lots of different crimes, and then try to add more crimes onto that, even though, you know, sex trafficking in itself covers a huge range of crimes. So I think I don't know what you're doing in courts. I do not know if that's the case, but yeah, that's how I feel that's happened with R. Kelly. It's like you've tried to take as many different crimes, names for different crimes, and all bundled it into one place, even though it's just the same thing, and you're just trying to give it as many different names so you can add on as many different years as possible. And I don't know if you're doing this with other people, but if you are doing it with other people, then I think it's incredibly wrong. um, you know, and kidnap as well. Like he was getting his girlfriends to stay in a room that they'd chosen to be in, a room that they'd agreed to be in. They've been dating for a long time, and you know, I don't know the exact details, but it's just like to try and bundle things into as many different crimes as possible, when really it's just the same act, and the same crimes are affecting by this. It's just crazy. It's crazy, and it's making me very worried of the justice system and who's working in these places. And um, you know, I feel like there is different levels. You know, first you might find prostitutes and say, hey, you know, if you want to come across state, we can get you work. I'll take 10%. You know, that to me isn't trafficking. That to me is a pimp act. There's something called a man act, and I don't think there should be anything man act. What the fuck? You're not allowed to take prostitutes from one side to the other for their own work. I mean, I don't. I think that's also stupid. If someone wants to work as a prostitute and then wants to go along lines and have more work in a different state, you know, I don't see that as particularly a crime. I think if you want to do it whilst making huge amounts of money off that person, that's you can make that a crime if you wanted to make that a crime. Um, but yeah, I feel like even with that, you can turn that into anything. You can turn that into sex trafficking. You can turn that into racketeering. You can add it all up, and it's just like, but if the girls were agreeing to it, if they wanted the work, if they were getting the work, and you know, and if you, I've been offered by people that, you know, do you want to do massage work? Who can take you to a place and we'll help you get work and we'll take a 10% fee. You know, I've been offered these things. Can't you call that sex trafficking? If you knew that I did extras, I don't, but if I did do extras, and someone wanted to make, you know, help me get work as a masseuse, and because I've when I was looking for work as a massage, you know, I didn't really want to work in a home. I had a studio flat. It wasn't very appropriate, especially when I was with my parents in their flat. You know, it wasn't, the accommodation was not right. But when I tried to look for shops and stuff, you know, they all had this sex trafficking. Maybe we should all call every massage shop a sex trafficking shop. Maybe, I mean, that to me is what you've kind of done with R. Kelly. You've taken something that's it's a small crime, and then you just try to put as many titles on it as possible. And you know, there are plenty of shops that say, we'll give you this room, you can use it as many times as you want, but we'll charge you £50 for the room. and these hotels exist. And is this sex trafficking? If a girl says, okay, yes, I'll agree to pay £50 for the room per hour. I don't know why anyone would agree to pay £50 per hour, but in London there's some really expensive places. So you know that there is this happens, and I've come across these places, and now to me I was just smart and being like, I'm not paying £50 an hour to do a massage when I'm only charging £50 an hour for the massage, because then I'd be working for free. But and I told them this. Well, I'm only charging £50 an hour, so how can I, if I'm paying that towards the session, how can I pay for it? I was like, oh well, you can do extras, and we won't take anything from your extras. I mean, technically, that to me isn't sex trafficking. That to me is them paying an extortionate amount of fee for the room, and forcing girls to do extras because that's the only way they make money. That's a completely different crime to sex trafficking. But at the same time, I feel like there's loads of people that might be able to take that as an example and say, yes, that's sex trafficking. It's like, well, it's not really. It's an agreement that's a bad agreement, and people shouldn't agree with that. I've had other places that say they charge £20 a room, but I had one that says they'll charge you £200 a week for the use of this massage parlor, but we'll also charge on top of that to I think it's because I didn't have, I had a MVQ in massage, but they said it's only level one. You need to have a level three MVQ in massage. And because I didn't have that, I'd have to pay £200 a week for the uses of the salon, and I'd have to pay £20 an hour to have someone sit in and watch the session, which like that's ridiculous. I'm not going to be doing that. I mean, I guess they'd get people in to have really bad business agreements such as this one. I don't know who would fall for such a business agreement, um, but yeah, I feel like people can be stupid when it comes to titling of things, and if someone is doing a crime that includes lots of different crimes, I think it would be silly to start saying, well, it's this crime and it's all these crimes, when really the crime that they're talking about actually includes all these crimes. And you know but I don't really know much about the law system, but I noticed that. And there is, though, a difference between saying, well, we're doing some sort of, we can offer you massage in a different country, but we'll have to pay for your expense. We'll pay for your expenses out of the money. Now, if you look at the expenses, and you feel that the expenses are fair, and they are taking money off the people, but only because of real charges that are not overpriced, not private. Having a private jet is incredibly expensive, and flying as well. If you fly first class on a plane, it's considerably more than just economic class and stuff. And so there is a sort of boundary of when does it become fair. If you've got a masseuse working for you, um, who does do extras, there is a sort of, how much are they agreeing to this, and if you're taking something from it, how, I don't agree with prostitution at all, um, but at the same time, there's a lot of people here that think that prostitution is fine, and the question is, how right is it, and how much is being influenced by other people, a third party, and and yeah, I don't know.